Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the week of April 7th through the 13th. In this channel, we talk about the astrological energy of the week ahead and how you can integrate it into your personal and spiritual growth. What a week ahead. I think that the week ahead is a week that a lot of people have been looking forward to. And to be quite honest, I think that it is the week that technically begins the year of 2025. I think that as of the week of the 7th, 14th, and on, we're going to begin to feel the other side of everything we have been experiencing since the beginning of 2025, right? The beginning of 2025 through now has been so much about shedding, about endings, about significant turning points, pivots, and transformations that as we move into the week of April 7th, we see how necessary it all was. One of the most common themes that I have been hearing from clients, coaching clients, or readings is I am not the person that I was at the beginning of March. I am a completely different person at the beginning of April. And so, for those of you who uh, did a year ahead reading with me, I mentioned how March was going to be a transformational month and how you were going to move through things that were absolutely necessary to align you with your soul's path. Now, there are a few things that I'm going to talk about in this video, and that is both the fact that Mercury is finally going direct on April 7th. Venus is going direct on April 12th, and also on April 12th, we have the full moon in Libra. So let's start with kind of recapping the soul lesson of what these retrogrades have represented over the last couple of weeks. There is something so exquisitely significant and poignant about this moment in 2025, about what March represented and about how we are moving into the month of April. Venus and Mercury are the two planets that govern the way that we love, the way that we connect, think, express. And those are parts of us that are so personal that those are things that we identify as part of our identities. And in this retrograde motion that they are coming out of, in the same week, right? I love how the universe orchestrates all of these things so perfectly, so beautifully. You know, this is a threshold that we're crossing. We're crossing the threshold of the before and the after. And this is not an accident, right? Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's the ocean of spirit, the place where the self dissolves into the infinite, where illusions are washed away, and where soul truths whisper beneath all of the noise of the world, right? I don't know about you, but I felt and still continue to feel like really, really in my world, in my cocoon, because the world is so loud right now that I needed to come back to soul and ask myself a lot of different questions, right? And then that is what's taking us and ushering us into Aries energy, right? Eventually, both of those planets are going to move back into the sign of Aries, Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, the spark of creation, the primal I am, the initiation of desire, the bold declaration of choosing oneself. So when you really look at what these retrogrades have represented, they have been sacred reversals, calling us back inwards, calling us back into our souls. And they truly have been an invitation to unwrite and rewrite old scripts that revolved around fear, around longing, around an illusion of something, right? So when we were in Pisces, and as we continue in Pisces, but during the retrogrades, we had to stop and ask ourselves, what am I still carrying that does not belong to my next becoming, right? So, as both Venus and Mercury invited us to revisit how we love, we speak, how we value ourselves, and how we listen to our divine intelligence, we needed to be in deep quiet at certain moments of these retrogrades, right? And so now we're coming back and we realize I don't have to perform anymore. I don't have to be anything I am not in order to be chosen, in order to be loved, in order to be seen, because I have to see myself first and foremost. And this is everything. This is everything because the moment that these planets station direct, it's not just a planetary motion. This isn't just another time that Mercury and Venus go direct. This is like a cosmic exhale, right? This is like us finally saying, I can breathe. There's a different level of understanding. And perhaps for some of you, it may feel like an understanding that you have been searching for a long, long time. So it is in it is in the moment when the inward reflection becomes the outward embodiment, right? This is the moment when you stop questioning your worth and start walking as if your worth is unquestionable. This is the moment when you stop overthinking and start expressing yourself directly from the core of your truth. Truly, this is the moment when you stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself. Spiritually, this is a passage from doubt to devotion, from dissolving to declaring, from hesitation to self-certainty. And I mean, if we take it even a little bit deeper, Venus direct restores the relationship with your desire, not from a place of longing, but from a place of guidance, right? Because we have to remember that if there is a desire in us, it's because there is something that we are being guided towards, right? Mercury direct restores the relationship with your voice, not as something that you have to hold back, not as something that you have to make sure you say things right, but as sacred self-expression, which it has always been, and it was always meant to be, right? So what emerges from this is not a version of you who needs to push anything or prove anything. What emerges is the version of you that speaks as truth flows through you, the person whose desires are divine. One of the things that we have to remember is that these retrogrades were truly a portal of rebirth. And in a year like 2025, this is miraculous timing, right? The cosmos do not miss a beat. The cosmos do everything on purpose, perfectly divinely orchestrated. Because in a year like 2025, when the world itself is searching for direction, craving authenticity, and learning to rebuild on higher ground, you are becoming the embodiment of that higher ground. That's what this was about. So you are the living bridge between the infinite wisdom of Pisces and the unapologetic aliveness of Aries. And the thread there, the bridge there is I get to be unapologetic because I understand that I come from the all that is, right? This doesn't mean that this has nothing at all to do with arrogance or ego. And this has everything to do with the understanding that when you understand that you are the all that is, you can't be apologetic about your expression. It is absolutely necessary for your authenticity to come through, right? So you walk forward in life not to chase a life, but to live it fully, to live it fiercely, to live it freely. Because what you discovered about yourself in these retrogrades is absolutely necessary for the energetic blueprint that we are marking this new world with. And that is so important because we have to come back to the understanding of how our internal reality affects the external collective. And so much of that had to do with returning back to love, to the understanding of love. So this is an invitation, right? As Venus and Mercury station direct, we stand at this threshold with an open heart, with a clear voice, and an anchored presence of who we are. And so the universe says, are you ready? It asks you, are you ready? And hopefully the answer is, I'm ready to walk as the soul that I have always been. Because again, these were not just any other retrogrades. These are these were true calling backs to the soul, to the depths of who we are, right? And the remembering that we are not empty, that we are full of truth. And that truth is who we really are. And so I found it necessary to just voice all of this, right? Because again, we understand what the retrogrades are about, when they started, when they end, but how did they touch your soul? Who are you now versus who you were in March at the beginning of this year, right? And for those of you who bought the Eclipse Guide, there is so much around relationships, personal relationships, romantic relationships, and who around you supports the version that you have become. This is such a monumental and pivotal moment in the year that is going to mark the you that begins to create the foundation of this new world reality that is 2025. So I'll stop there with that. I think I've given you enough around that. I hope it lands well. I hope it inspires something in you. And I want to start talking about the full moon in Libra, which I think, again, so divinely orchestrated to happen on the day that Venus goes direct. So the full moon in Libra takes place on Saturday, April 12th, and it's a full moon in Libra at 23 degrees Libra. So it's important to look at what Venus is doing at the time of the full moon. Venus is newly direct. It has come from, you know, this underworld transformation. It has crossed a threshold that now direct, even though it's still in Pisces, it's direct and it's awake conjunct Saturn in Pisces. I have said this probably in every single video, maybe not every single one, but a lot of videos over the last couple of months of Saturn and Pisces representing what am I devoted to? And Venus coming retrograde, coming out of a retrograde, conjunct Saturn is really saying, what am I devoted to in my life? Who am I devoted to in my life? And really having a lot of spiritual maturity around it. Because whenever Saturn is involved with Venus, this is about getting getting very real, getting very serious about our relationships, our relationship to money, right? Our relationship to ourselves, our relationship to our sense of worth, to our sense of value. And so with this Venus in Pisces, at the time of the full moon in the sign that it rules around relationships, this is about a deep, deep understanding about who comes with us, who doesn't, who we are in relationship to ourselves. And one of the things that I really love about and continue to love about Pisces energy is that there is a lot of possibility for healing and restructuring, assuming that our relationships, um, there was an intention to rebuild during the retrogrades, right? If there wasn't, then between now and over the next 6 months, we're going to be making big decisions around certain relationships. But there is something very sobering, very grounding, even with a Venus in Pisces, because it is conjunct that Saturn in Pisces as well. And don't forget that the North Node in Pisces is at 27 degrees Pisces, so it's not far away, right? And so the North Node in Pisces is saying this is where you're growing. Regardless of it being in Pisces, the North Node is saying the truth of what you've seen is what you need to accept because this is your soul growth. This isn't about what the ego wants. This is about what your soul needs in order to fulfill the journey that it signed up for in this lifetime, right? Not too far away is also Mercury. Mercury at 28 degrees Pisces, newly direct. There is a lot of clarity here. And I think that the second half of April, I mean, really, the rest of April, as of this week, we're going to be moving forward with things from a more practical perspective, we're going to be moving forward with contracts, with agreements, with partnerships, right? We're going to be asking ourselves, who gets to come with me, who doesn't? Have I outgrown certain relationships? And remember, let's expand it just beyond personal relationships, romantic relationships. This gets to be, have I outgrown my relationship with, I don't know, my therapist? Have I outgrown my relationship with my trainer? You know, because how we look at ourselves is going to determine how we are looking at our relationships and the relationship to our life. There is nothing here that is by accident. What that Venus in Pisces is also doing is that it's creating a beautiful sextile to Uranus and Taurus, right? Taurus, another sign that Venus rules. Uranus has been so much about breaking free from the old tried and true, breaking patterns, interrupting habits, interrupting things that no longer serve us. And Uranus and Taurus is such a clear indicator around how our body responds to things. Does our body expand or contract at the thought of being with someone, hanging out with someone, talking to someone, right? Does our nervous system expand or contract at the thought of going to that job, to that place, around those people? Our bodies are really speaking loudly right now. They're very, very clear about where they want us to be and not. I think one of the things you're also going to want to keep in mind, especially this week as we lead up to a full moon, remember, everything leads up to a full moon. Um, Pay attention to how your body feels. Are you energized? Are you tired? Are you unable to sleep? How are you taking care of your body, right? Don't forget that this is also a month after that very, very revelatory full moon in Virgo that we had in the middle of March. This is a month after that. So a lot of the things that a lot of people are going to be making decisions on with this full moon in Libra are going to be things that landed for them in mid-March with that full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. Another important aspect of this full moon in Libra is that the sun in Aries is conjunct Chiron in Aries. This is us um, kind of standing before ourselves and saying, my God, I've really been through it. I've really been through the discomfort, through the pain, through the difficult, honest conversations, through the hard truths that I've had to accept about myself, about another. And Chiron there, it's just an appreciation for how profound and perhaps even difficult this process has been. The sun in Aries conjunct Chiron is also the recognition of, my God, I'm a different person, or I feel like a different person. I think differently. I speak differently. I hold myself differently. I am a different person that is going to move through the rest of 2025 with different values, with a different outlook, with a different mindset. Guys, we really, really went through it with these retrogrades and these eclipses. This was not just another season. This was truly a transformative season. And this week, it's kind of like we're coming out, right? We're coming out of that transformational cave and we're peeking our head out into the world and kind of coming out of the darkness. Not that it had to be dark, but we needed to spend a lot of time with ourselves, a lot of time reconciling who we are, who we no longer are, what we tolerate, what we no longer tolerate. And even as I say those words, I feel like they fall short to what we actually went through. But the fact of the matter is that we had to look at those things deeply, profoundly, to the extent where we can no longer lie to ourselves or make excuses for ourselves if that's something that we were doing. Another important thing that this full moon is doing is that it's creating a square to Mars in Cancer. And so Mars in Cancer, I've talked about it, right? It's what's worth fighting for, what actually nurtures my soul. Um, this has so much to do with the redefinition of who feels like family, what feels like family. How do I recreate my home, right? And so I think that's so much around home for a lot of people um, is going to land with this full moon in Libra. And their definition of that, their definition of family, their definition of relationship, of what a functioning relationship is. So there's a lot of intricacies here. There's a lot of nuances here that this Mars in Cancer, I think this Mars in Cancer is also giving us a lot of compassion. I think it's also giving us a lot of feels, a lot of understanding. The good thing is that now all of the planets in Pisces are also direct. So again, there is compassion, there is understanding, there is healing that from this point and over the next 6 months, we are going to be integrating. Now, one of the things that we have to keep in mind too is that Neptune is at 0 degrees Aries and it's creating a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. This is the beginning of a new era, right? Both Neptune and Pluto are outer planets. They represent the collective. So, whatever has unfolded in your personal life, with the personal planets being retrograde, right? Venus and Mercury. And now we have this full moon in Libra that in which those two personal planets are direct. We're coming out of that tunnel of transformation, and Neptune is now in Aries, creating a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius, which represents the new era, the age of Aquarius. This is a new us walking into this new world. So, our intention of how we build our life from this point forward becomes so much more important because where we stand as a collective is that we have so much more awareness than we ever have in the past. And for those of you who listen to me, any other astrologer, any other metaphysical practices, therapy, coaching, you have a different level of awareness. Therefore, you have a different level of responsibility towards yourself and the decisions that you make for your life in your relationships, to the relationship to yourself from this point on. As always, may this be of service. Thank you so much for joining me. I will talk to you next week.